So one of the things that you really want to do when it comes to doing long distance play, work together in that communication to come up with rules and expectations. So for example, what are your away rules? So when you're not together in whatever form that is, whether it's phone or on camera or text or email, whatever platform that you're using, do you have rules and guidelines set up for when you're not engaged at that moment? Can you see other people? Is your submissive allowed to play with other people? How do you create that dynamic? Again, it comes down to communications. You need to define what actually is play. What are the hard and soft limits? So just because you're not in the same room together and you're doing long distance doesn't mean that there still isn't hard and soft limits. Coming up with a way to enforce punishments. This takes creativity because, again, you're not in the room. Often in the BDSM community, there's physical punishments. How do you enforce that? How do you do those different kinds of punishments? So this is where the creativity comes in. And this is one of the reasons why I'm asking you to link into your five senses. So you want to make sure that everything is clear. It's concise. You have spent the time and did the work to make sure the communication is clear, the rules are clear, the expectations are clear. This is monumentally important. You also want to keep your expectations realistic. It's better to have a list of 5 rules that are really important than a list of 20 that are confusing. So for me, I go through and go, what is a realistic expectation for my sub to follow? For example, my sub works a 9-to-5 job. So am I going to have an expectation that by the time he gets home from work at night, that there's this big laundry list of tasks to do? Well, it depends on the person and depends on the relationship. It depends on the amount of time. But for me, I take those things into consideration because his happiness in turn makes me happy. So I'm very considerate when it comes to realistic expectations. But again, this leads back to communication and rules. So these are things that we have spent the time talking about, working our way through, finding things that work, finding things that don't work, and giving space and time to adjust. It's okay to adjust, even if you have a contract. You also want to think about things that can be a serious health issue, health hazards, social issues. If you've got somebody who, is going to go to church on Sunday with their grandmother, is it okay for them to wear that collar? Maybe if they're wearing a leather collar on their off time or wearing it to work. So those are things to keep into consideration because there's you, there's another person, and there's other people at large. This is where it's up to you guys to put the time and energy into communicating all of these things when you make a plan.